Hello everyone and welcome back to LewisFiction and welcome to another episode of the Spider-Man Cinematic Universe. In this video, I bring you the sequel to the first Tombstone film and Spider-Man 2, Tombstone and the Cat. With that out of the way, let's get straight into this. We start our story right in the middle of the events of Spider-Man 2 during the Rikers Island breakout. However, while Peter and Norman are more focused on each other, in the other corner of the story we have two of the other main figures. In the heart of New York City, amidst the towering skyscrapers and bustling streets, two figures emerge from the shadows. Lonnie Lincoln, known to the criminal underworld as Tombstone, and Wilson Fisk, the infamous Kingpin. They make their escape from Rikers Island and have now made it into the lower levels of New York City. With a hideout secured by Fisk, he plans his next move to conquer the city once again. Instead of hiding in plain sight, Fisk decides it's time to take a more hands-on role in the criminal underworld. And he wants Tombstone as his right-hand man to help him through all of this. But Tombstone has different priorities. He reveals to Fisk that he has a family to find, a family to take care of. Tombstone has had some time to ponder while he's been in prison. He doesn't want this life. He never wanted this life. But he got roped in by unforeseen circumstances all those years ago. However, his time in prison has brought him back to the ground. It has brought sense back into him. He knows that he can't do this anymore, and when Fisk advances on him saying he must help him, Lonnie refuses. Fisk, enraged by Tombstone's refusal to join him, disowns him, declaring him dead to him. A brawl breaks out between the two. We see the mighty strength of Lonnie, but also the willpower of Fisk. He's not an easier man to overcome, and ultimately Fisk comes out on top with Lonnie just about escaping. After this introduction, we are then thrust into the main part of the film. Lonnie will have no home, and will have no connection to the outside world. He'll sleep on park benches, and will be hiding away from the cops. However, his main goal, find his family. Find Rebecca and Janice. He will attempt to call them on payphones around the city. However, his attempts to reach them are futile. His calls go completely unanswered. With no way of contacting them, Lonnie goes to the only person that'd know where they'd be, Rebecca's mother. He arrives at her house, and at first she scowls and frowns Lonnie away from the door, but he begs for her to talk to him. Her mother tells Lonnie that he put her daughter and her granddaughter through hell, and that he doesn't deserve them. And in the pouring rain of New York, Lonnie rests his head on the brick wall as she slams the door in his face. Lonnie knocks again, but she doesn't answer. He speaks from the other side of the door as she listens from the inside. He tells her that he's made a lot of mistakes, a lot of ones that he regretted, but everything he's done in his life is for her, to protect her, to make her feel safe, and to provide for his daughter. If he could go back and make different decisions, he would, as he thinks back to everything that happened with Doug during the first Tombstone film. Rebecca's mother opens the door again and lets him in. She lets Lonnie explain himself, and Lonnie tells the story of how he got roped into the situation he was in. He got out of prison, and he wants to find his family, but he didn't know where to turn. She ends up telling him where they have gone. Rebecca and Janice have moved away to California. Lonnie thanks her as he goes on his way. However, as Lonnie prepares his trip up to California to find them, he is then intercepted by a strange figure who kidnaps him. The play was smart, and the figure managed to take him out in one swoop, as if their move was completely entirely calculated from the moment they stepped into the frame. Lonnie finds himself in a room with a bag over his head. A million thoughts run through his mind. At first he thought it was Fisk. He'd found him, and he'd brought him in, he'd think. But then when the bag is released, he's surprised to find that it's not Wilson Fisk at all. And actually, stood on the other side of the room is a woman in a cat costume? How strange, Lonnie would think to himself. The woman, who would go by the name Black Cat, would interrogate Tombstone as to Kingpin's plans. Lonnie says that he doesn't work with him anymore, and the Black Cat says that she wants him dead. Lonnie says that there are a lot of people that want him dead, but what makes you so special? The Black Cat will go on to tell Lonnie that Kingpin murdered her father, and she wants revenge. She has been tracking Lonnie ever since he got out of prison, and saw him as an easy target to bring him in and to interrogate him as to where Kingpin is, and how to take him down. As she just wants to get back at him for all the pain and suffering that he brought to her family. Lonnie will say, so you put on a Halloween costume hunting down Fisk and his goons like you're some vigilante? Cat will ask, what is wrong with that? Isn't that what Spider-Man is? Lonnie will say, Spider-Man is a freak of nature. You're just a kid. Cat will realize that Lonnie is not at all threatened by her at all. And she also realizes that he's telling the truth. He's got no part of this anymore. He's got no life in the criminal underworld, and he just wants to separate himself from it. Lonnie is not defensive in the slightest. He's just truthful. Cat will ask him if he's got a family. Lonnie will say he does. Black Cat will say, what if Fisk took their lives? What would you do? Lonnie grits his teeth and says he'd rip him limb from limb. And that's why Cat will say to help her. Help her get revenge on her father. Lonnie will say this doesn't concern him. and he's trying to lay low. He doesn't want to get wrapped up in all this. Not again. Cat lets him go, as Lonnie leaves. Lonnie stays determined to protect his loved ones at any cost. And undeterred, Lonnie sets out on his journey to California, tracking down his family's whereabouts. Yet upon reaching their home, where he finally arrives, he discovers it's empty. They are nowhere to be seen, and after waiting to see if they'd return from being out or away for some time, his worst fears are realised when he finds out that there is only one explanation for all of this. Fisk has gotten to his family first. And it isn't just a coincidence. The home doesn't look lived in. It doesn't look like it's been lived in for a few days. They got there before Lonnie did. Fisk had kidnapped his family, using them as leverage to force Tombstone back into his service. With nowhere else to turn, Lonnie returns to New York, more determined than ever to catch Wilson Fisk and bring him to justice. This is when Black Cat will enter back into the film, as Tombstone seeks out the mysterious vigilante, hoping to enlist her help as to rescue his family. Reluctantly, she agrees, driven by her own desire for vengeance against Fisk for her father's death. Together they form an unlikely alliance, their shared goal uniting them against a common enemy. The rest of the film will build upon them trying to work with each other in the most unlikely of manner. They don't bounce off each other well, and they have no chemistry, but that's why this works. They are united by a common enemy, and can set aside their very differing personalities and ways of life for one thing: family. As the theme of this film becomes very clear, it's all about family. Lonnie will try to get to learn a little bit more about Black Cat and who she is as a person. However, she is very closed off, and will tell him who she is under the mask doesn't matter, and it isn't important. Lonnie will respect this privacy. As they infiltrate Fisk's hideout, Tombstone and Black Cat face off against Fisk and his men in a climactic and cinematic showdown. It's brutal and it's well fought. In the heart of the battle, Cat believes Fisk should be killed for killing her father. However, Lonnie restrains her, saying it's better off if he's sent to prison to live out the rest of his days, believing that Fisk should face justice for his crimes rather than meet a violent end. And with that, watching Fisk get sent off to prison as they finally overcome him, Black Cat manages to come to terms with her father's death, rather than being filled with anger and vengeance, and ultimately regret following Fisk's planned death. And as the dust settles, for helping return Fisk to prison, Lonnie is given an exception and is placed on house arrest instead of going back to Rikers as a reward. The Kingpin is a dangerous man, and Lonnie, along with the help of the Black Cat, may have done New York a massive favour in the long run. Lonnie and his family make the choice to move upstate and to leave Manhattan behind. He's not allowed to move state, but he'll move as far away from this place as possible. Lonnie, Rebecca, and Janice will finally start a new life together and get their happy ending. He wishes Black Cat good luck as they part ways for the last time. And with that, we come to the end of our film. Thank you very much for watching Tombstone and the Cat. This is the interim film explaining what happened with all those characters that we followed from the early days in the cinematic universe after the events of Spider-Man 2. And obviously with the introduction of Black Cat, that can only mean more things to come down the line. You're not going to want to miss next week's video, because that is going to be the third and final Spider-Man film, Spider-Man 3. Obviously everything converging with Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. Black Cat has now been introduced. You're not going to want to miss it. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care and peace.